Hey there, art nerds! Happy holidays! I have a series of watercolor Stashbuster tutorials for you guys that I am really excited about. We are starting off with the first, and I'm going to show you guys how to paint sparkling ornaments in watercolor. So grab your paints, grab your brushes, and let's get painting because today's is an easy one. The materials you'll need for today's tutorial are pretty simple. You're going to need a scrap of cotton rag watercolor paper. You're going to need some masking fluid. You're going to need some masking tape. And you're going to need your watercolors, preferably some bright colored watercolors, but also some darker watercolors. So I'm using some super granulating watercolors. I'm also using some neon watercolors, and I'm using my Daily Driver watercolor set. I would recommend for this tutorial that you work with professional grade watercolors because they're just going to work and layer a lot better. But feel free to try it out with what you've got handy. This is a great way to use up those scraps of watercolor paper that we've all been hoarding. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my masking tape to tape down my bookmark on all four edges to a piece of cardboard chipboard. So the back of a sketchbook or the end of your watercolor pad would work perfectly for this. And I'm using artist masking tape, but you can basically just use washi tape for this or regular painter's masking tape. Whatever you have will probably work pretty well. Generally, when I'm taping down something, I start with one of the shortest edges, then I do the two longer edges, and then I finally end with the last shortest edge. And I find that helps prevent the paper from buckling as I'm taping it. I don't know if you guys have a problem with that, but it sure seems to happen to me. I'm also using Winsor & Newton's removable masking fluid, and I have it in a small jar just to make it a little bit easier to handle. If you're looking for all the materials that I used in today's tutorial, make sure you check the description below. I'll have them all written out and linked for you guys. If you guys use my links, I want you to know that if it's an Amazon link, it is an affiliate link. I do see a small bounty from that. And it's a great way to support the work that I'm doing here on the channel without spending any extra money. If you like what I do though, and you'd like to help me continue to do it, you can join me at Patreon at patreon.com/natosoup. Now that I've got all four edges taped down, I'm going to press down the tape to make sure that there aren't any gaps or bubbles where water or paint can seep under it. This is going to give us a much better seal, and we can start by sketching out our ornament shape. You can do just simple round ornaments if you like. You can do something a bit more complicated like stars or hearts. I'm using kind of the retro bulb shape. I sketched it out really loosely and just kind of plan my rough placement, and then I'm going to go back over it and kind of tighten it up and erase all the extra lines. Once we've got that sketched, Let's pull out our brightly colored watercolors. I'm also going to be using a small ceramic plate to mix my colors, as well as a large round watercolor brush. Now, the first thing I'm doing is I'm creating kind of a diagonal gradient going from yellow all the way to blue. I'm using some neon colors, and I'm also using some super granulating colors. If you have the super granulating colors, this can be a really fun project for them. If you don't worry about it. It's going to work just as well with brightly colored watercolors. I'm just using something in my stash that doesn't get enough love that I'd like to use more often. We're going to let that layer dry, and then if you want more intense colors, you can go over it again, which is what I'm doing here. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I'm Becca Hilburn. I'm a watercolor comic artist and illustrator. I also review art supplies, and I love creating easy to do, easy to paint watercolor tutorials to share with you guys. That's what my Stashbuster tutorial series is all about. So if you like what I do, you can join me by clicking the subscribe button and hitting that bell notification and letting YouTube know that you want to see more from me, because I've got lots of great Stashbuster tutorials that I've already recorded for you guys, as well as some new ones coming up. So keep an eye out for that. So once our paint has had a chance to dry fully, and you want to make sure it's fully dry, we're going to move everything over to the side and pull out our masking fluid. And you want to make sure this is removable masking fluid. They do make masking fluids that aren't removable, so you want to check, and you want to just gently shake it. We're not trying to add bubbles to it too much, but we are trying to mix it together because it does tend to separate over time. I'm going to use an inexpensive synthetic watercolor brush that has some brush soap in it. If you don't have brush soap, you can just use bar soap, and that's going to protect the bristles from the masking fluid. And then I'm just going to carefully fill in my ornaments one at a time, making sure that I get good coverage. Once we've filled in all our ornaments with masking fluid, we want to let it dry fully before we move on to the next step. So you might want to take this as an opportunity to go get a snack, use the bathroom, or even go for a walk. Now that our masking fluid has dried totally, and you can tell it's dry because it's gone totally clear, I am going to do a layer of granulating green. This is undersea green, but you can use whatever color you want to use. And I'm just going to apply it as a wash all over everything. I'm going to allow that to dry and then go over it again and do another wash, adding in some water here and there to kind of blend it out. You just use what feels right to you. The whole point is to create a dark background so that our ornaments really pop. We're going to let that dry fully, and then it's going to be time to remove our masking fluid. I say that, but I did want to add a little bit of sparkle to this, so I'm using Winsor & Newton's gold ink. It actually has particles of bronze in it, which makes it feel really metallic, because it is really metallic. You can use any metallic watercolors that you happen to like. And I'm just going to splatter it onto the background before I remove the masking fluid. And this creates kind of a fun gold accent that really feels like the holidays. It's got that glitter, it's got that glimmer, it's got that glitz that I think a lot of people think of the holidays, whether it's New Year's or Hanukkah or Christmas, that sort of glamour to it. I'm going to cap it and clean my brush off and allow this to dry fully. We're going to use a masking fluid pickup to go ahead and gently pull away our masking fluid. Now, some people can use just their fingers for this. I'm actually kind of jealous of them because I sure can't. But if you don't have a masking fluid pickup, you can find them down at Dollar Tree. Now, once you have it kind of lifted already, you can get those really crispy, satisfying peels that TikTok seems to love. Now, unfortunately for me, as I removed the masking fluid, it did remove some of the pigment. The colors aren't as bright and vibrant as I'd like. So I'm just going to go back over some of the ornaments and kind of reintroduce that color back into it and encourage those wet into wet blends. Again, this is up to you. If you want to do this step, go for it. If you want to take it in a totally different direction, go for it. This is your bookmark, and I'm just here to provide some ideas and some encouragement to get you guys painting. But I felt like it was a shame that we lost all that pretty color, so I decided to go back over it and adjust it a little bit. Art nerds know that when I pull out the gouache, it means we are almost done. Now, if you're not familiar with gouache, it is an opaque watercolor. I'm using white gouache here, as well as some smaller round watercolor brushes. And what I'm going to do with my gouache is I'm going to use it to paint caps on the ornament, paint the hanger on the ornament, paint an outline around the ornament, and that's going to kind of clean things up a little bit, and paint a highlight on the ornament. And really, how much or how little you want to do at this stage is up to you. So with gouache, you want to add a little bit of water. You want it to be kind of like the consistency of cream. And you may find that to get the opacity you want, you're going to have to go over it a couple of times. That's perfectly fine. But I really like how the white outlines and the white accents really pull these ornaments together, and they make them seem so much cleaner than what I actually was able to achieve. So we're hiding some of our mistakes. So don't worry about being perfect. A little bit of wabi-sabi actually adds some personality to your art. But if you do make mistakes and you don't like them, there are always tricks that you can use to clean them up and make it look like you did it intentionally. And for the finishing touch, let's paint on the hangers. And I'm just going to do a simple loop in white gouache for our hangers. But it would be very cute if you did like a little heart in there. Whatever you feel comfortable and confident doing, go for it. Now that it's dried, it's time for us to pull away our masking tape. You want to pull away at a 90-degree angle, so if it does tear, it doesn't tear into your illustration. And look at those crispy tape peels. They look so good and so crisp. And there we have it, the first of 5 brand new holiday Stashbuster watercolor bookmark tutorials. Feel free to use the techniques that I showed you in today's tutorial to paint a postcard, to paint a holiday card, to paint holiday tags. It doesn't have to be a bookmark. That's just the scrap that I had to use for this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful, useful, and informative. If you did, leave me a big ol' like and a huge happy holidays, and thank you to my amazing patrons on Patreon. You guys make tutorials like this one possible. Thanks, guys.